I was born and raised in East St. Louis, Illinois. A lot of gang violence, a lot of drug violence.
What was one of your biggest takeaways or big things you learned or contributing factors?
I've grown tremendously as a result of my time in Sardinia. And fortunately, I had some really cool mentors out there that were Italian Navy SEALs. The hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I was so scared. I had not, like, what in the hell have I gotten myself into? Mortars just started falling, destroyed the whole thing. If I had hesitated for even just 15 seconds, I might not be sitting here.
Where did Hiro come in?
You are the hero you have been holding out for. You are the leader you have been waiting to show up and save you.
Welcome back to Diehard Entrepreneur Stories. I am your host, Devin Ramos. Today I get to sit down with Ty Smith, the CEO of CommSafe AI and retired Navy SEAL. We have our first SEAL on the show, and I say that only jokingly, but it's a good time. Ty talks about over the last almost decade, how he's worked as an entrepreneur to grow his companies and what his transition from Navy SEAL of 20 plus years in the military, most of it as a SEAL, and everything he's learned as he's transitioned out, what that's looked like. He gives us several really great frameworks. One of them specifically just changed the way I think. We got to relate a ton about this idea of surrendering. And so if you're like me and you've grown up in a space where you feel as if you can just impose your will upon things like we do many times in the military, but you're finding out that you can't do that as an entrepreneur, then you're going to want to listen to this. He gives a really good framework of how he's worked through that and continues to work through that. And it is a good one. There's a lot of little gold nuggets on his experience growing an AI company and really starting that company before OpenAI was out there and big and the average person really knew about it. And he talked about some of the unique things there. He also covers his transition. So he's in the process, hopefully, of being acquired. And so he's looking to some new things and has started Hiro Consulting, a consulting company where he is actively coaching others and providing executive leadership. It's a good one. You're going to want to stick around to the end. Without further ado, here's Ty. All right. What is up, Ty? Welcome to the show, my man.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Devin.
Yeah, of course, brother. I got to tell you, congrats. You are the first SEAL that I've had on this show so far.
Really? Thank you. I appreciate that. I like to blaze trails, so let's go.
I love it, dude. Let's do it. Yeah. No, and I say that in jest, but I think it's funny because I come from our community. I'm a Green Beret. You're a SEAL. Sometimes there's a little bit of rivalry. I think there's more rivalry that I've seen from people outside of the organization than inside the organization. You see that all the time on like Google, like who's better, SEALs or Green Berets, and like all sorts of stuff like that. So it makes me chuckle. I don't know about you.
Same here. I laugh my ass off because it's hilarious, especially because you point out the fact that most of the time, that rivalry exists more between people outside of the community than us in the community. And I think that's because for us in the community, we're like, what do you mean? What rival? Like, you know how many gunfights I've been in with Green Berets? Like these are badass, just as badass as we are, So for me, it's one team, one fight. And it's all fun and games. Of course, we poke at one another, but it's all one team, one fight.
Cool. So, Ty, you are writing an autobiography right now. Tell me about that. Where are you at in the process? And I guess really, what's your aim with that? I guess what's the goal behind that? Where'd that come from?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So I am probably about the halfway mark of writing my life story. I am writing this story for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, for years, people have told me that, hey, man, you need to write a book. You have to write this story. Your life has been incredible. There's so much that people can learn from you, given your humility and the fact that you don't mind, talking to people about the mistakes that you've made and the growth that you have experienced on the other side of those mistakes. And so I kind of shied away from it for years because I think that what I was hearing from those people was, hey, you should write another Navy SEAL book. And I was like, dude, there are plenty of those out there. I don't want to write another Navy SEAL book. But over the last several years of my life in particular, I have experienced so much personal and professional and spiritual growth as an individual that I'm starting to understand why all of those people were telling me that. I'm starting to understand what they were seeing in me and around me that caused them to go, hey, the world needs to hear this story. And I'm at the point where I agree with them. In fact, how tragic would it be? How reckless and irresponsible and ungrateful would I be if I didn't share this story with people in hopes that it would transform lives and cause people to get up and go out and be that beacon of hope and that shining light that I know that God wants every single one of us to be. And so that's why I'm doing it. I want to show people that, hey, you can go from 0 to 100. We're in the best country in the world, the number one place on the planet where you can actually go from 0 to hero. And so I'm hoping that by way of my story, I'll inspire other people to do exactly that.
I love it. I love it, man. Yeah, it's interesting. You brought up a really interesting point, and I think that there's a boom to come. Some might say it's already hit, but I see a lot of peers, a lot of friends, a lot of people coming out of the military within SOCOM. We'll leave it at SOCOM specifically, where historically we don't really talk about this stuff, really at all. And now a lot of great individuals are using it to impact other people's lives. I think I see a lot of I can just speak for myself, but me, my peers, my friends understand that there's a bigger mission. We're still looking for that mission, and we're finding it in using our journey, our story to help others. And then I'm sure there's going to be people that misuse it. And, that comes with everything. But you said it rightly. And I appreciate that. I look forward to your book, man. I can't wait.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And you're right. Hey, listen, when it comes down to it, there are always going to be people that misunderstand or misconstrue your words or your efforts. That's okay. Everyone is different. Also, haters are going to hate. So who cares? And when it comes down to it, I've always been the type of leader to say, sure, I'll fall on that sword as long as it's for the greater good of my tribe. So bring it on. When it comes down to it, I know that my heart's in the right place, so I'm not worried about it. And then also, before I started this journey with launching Hiro Consulting and starting to work on the autobiography, I was mindful of the fact that, sometimes people tend to misunderstand the why behind when men like us actually come out into the public light and start talking to the world about who we are and why we are this way now as a result of the experiences from our military careers. And so I took it upon myself to be a little bit more proactive, and I reached out into the Naval Special Warfare community, specifically to the small group of individuals that are like my closest circle, the boys that I went through training with, the boys that I led as a platoon chief at SEAL Team 1. And I explained to them all, I literally shot a 5-minute video of myself talking to them about, hey, boys, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. You're going to start seeing me in a public light like a lot more often. These are going to be some of the things that I'm talking about. This is why I'm talking about those things. And this is my hope for the other side of it. I want to transform lives. And I think that because I was proactive in that communication, it's paying in spades. And I had all of those guys reach out to me and go, dude, fire when ready. We love you. We trust you. We know who you are. And yeah, man, let's move. And so I feel good about doing what I'm doing.
I love that, man. I love that you shared how you went about it too, because I think that's important. At least that speaks to me, and that speaks to the way I operate and I want to operate. And so that's really neat. That's cool. So, Ty, you had mentioned a moment ago starting at 0. Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood, your upbringing, and I guess, really what led to you wanting to become a SEAL. And sounds like maybe you've always had that sort of mentality. But I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Sure. I was born and raised in East St. Louis, Illinois. So on the east side of the Mississippi River in the Illinois, the great state of Illinois. And, like a lot of people, I was raised, in a city that is troubled, to say the least. A lot of gang violence, a lot of drug violence. My family never had a lot of money, but my family is incredible, and they are the reason why I turned out the way that I did. But I was a good kid growing up. My mom was a lady cop for 27 years, so I couldn't get away with anything, let alone murder. You know what I mean? And so they kept me on the straight and narrow. I grew up, as an athlete playing football and wrestling. I was never talented at football. I was uniquely talented at wrestling, which would lead into my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu career later on in life. But I was just a normal kid that was an athlete, and I was doing the best I could and was basically struggling through school along with everyone else that was barely paying attention in class. That was me, head in the clouds all over the place. Just because I was a dreamer. I've always been a dreamer. And when I was 12 years old, I saw the movie Navy SEALs, starring none other than Charles Sheen, And man, I fell in love when I saw that movie. I was absolutely in love with what I saw those men doing, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do when I grew up. And so I just put that dream in my back pocket and I held on to it. And when I was graduating high school in 1996, of course, I didn't have any athletic scholarships waiting for me. If I remember correctly, Devin, I don't even think I took the SAT and the ACT my senior year in high school because I just wasn't planning to go to college. And so when I graduated, I went and saw the Navy recruiter and basically was like, get me on the next thing smoking. And in September 1996, I left home, alone and unafraid, and joined the United States Navy with that dream in my back pocket.
Oh, man, I love that. And if I remember correctly, I know it's changed over time. Same with our pipeline and the way we recruit. But during this time, or maybe I'm wrong here, you had to join the Navy with a different job, and then you'd kind of move over, get a chance to go to BUD/S. Is that correct? Is that how you did it?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Nowadays, guys can come right in under a Naval Special Warfare contract. Of course, it doesn't agree that they're going to make it through the training and get into the community, but they can join for that reason. Back in 1996, you had to have some fleet time first before you could actually get into BUD/S. In my case, that fleet time was just like a year and some change of me going through the air crewman candidate and anti-submarine warfare training pipeline. And when I was toward the end of that pipeline, I was making a really big deal out of not wanting to be there and wanting to be in SEAL training. And around this time, it was early 1997. I was still 18 at the time. And eventually they let me go. And so my first time through BUD/S training was with class 218 back in, I think it was 1997. And I was an 18-year-old punk kid. And I quit about a day into Hell Week. I wasn't too cold. I wasn't too tired. I was just terrified. I was so scared. I had what in the hell have I gotten myself into? And I knew on day one that I was in trouble, right? But with my heart being as big as it is, I just kept going. But that first night of Hell Week, I knew that I wasn't ready. And so I decided to go away until I was ready. And I ended up taking orders out to Sardinia, Italy as a military police officer, and had a phenomenal time out there. Ended up staying out there for almost 5 years, had become nearly fluent in the language. I had a dream-like life. And on September 11th, 2001, I was on emergency leave flying home to visit my mom, who was sick in the hospital. And so I was on an airplane flying into New York City on September 11th, 2001. Fortunately, I wasn't on one of the planes that had been hijacked, and we ended up getting grounded in a small town outside of London. I jumped on a train, got down to London, checked in at the embassy, called my command back in Sardinia to let them know that I was okay. And long story short, a couple weeks later, when the airspace was reopened, got back to my command in Sardinia, Italy. And the day I got back to the command, the career counselor walked up to me with orders to go back to buds in hand. And was like, hey, I hope you're ready to go back to training. You've been asking for years now, and now your country needs you. And so I ended up coming back out here to Coronado in February 2002 to start the training pipeline again, and fortunately successfully navigated the pipeline and found myself in the Naval Special Warfare community.
Wow, man, that's incredible. What a cool thing to experience, at least from my perspective. Ty, I know that it was years ago, but from what you can recall, what was like one of the biggest shifts that changed between the first time going and the second time going? Because I think we both agree where we're at in our lives, we probably both say like you could have made it through either time. Like it's not that big of a deal, right? Like it's something to be proud of for sure, but it's like you can make it through. Like a lot of it's in your head, right? What would you say? Like what was one of your biggest takeaways or big things you learned or contributing factors?
Yeah, I love that question. I think that when I first got to Budge training at 18 years old, I was extremely immature. I was immature in my heart, and I was immature in my mind and in my spirit. I hadn't really experienced any life yet. And yeah, sure, growing up in East St. Louis was hard, but it was just as hard for me as it was for everyone else. I didn't really have the context for how much darker life could get yet, because I was still living a good life. I was in the Navy. I was eating 3 times a day. I had a roof over my head. Like it was peacetime. I was a kid cruising around with a bunch of money in my pocket and doing whatever I wanted. So, I mean, really, life was good, and I was young and dumb, and I had a chip on my shoulder, and I thought I knew everything, and I didn't know anything. And I think I was just kind of winging it in life. Whereas when I went back to training, almost 5 years later, I had several reasons to really understand the importance of focus. I had lived a little life. I'd grown tremendously as a result of my time in Sardinia. And fortunately, I had some really cool mentors out there that were Italian Navy SEALs and that were just pumping me up like, dude, I'm telling you, you got this. Like, we see it in you. Like, you belong here. Like, keep training. And not to mention 9/11 had happened. I was just as angry as everyone else. And I had been training, ridiculously hard that entire time I was in Europe, knowing that I wanted to go back to SEAL training. And I still had this fire in my gut that I would later on discover in life that, hey, that's there for a reason. It's telling you, which way you should be going. It's giving you your bearing, if that's what you're feeling regarding a certain dream. And it never went away. And so I think that when I got back to training, I had a lot more mental maturity. I had a lot more psychological maturity, and I was angry. And I knew that the country was going to war, and I wanted to serve. And so it felt completely different that second time through. I could never recall being afraid. I was just fired up and happy the whole time that I was there. No matter how cold it was, no matter how much pain I was in, I was just in this constant feeling of gratitude, like, God, I'm really doing this time, and you're not going to let me fail. Like, whatever it is you're doing to me, this is great, because like the harder it gets, the bigger the smile on my face. And I think that everything in my heart and my mind had changed that second time around. I was certainly much more resilient as a result of that 5 years of maturity in Europe and being around people that were positive and good people and people that believed in me. I didn't want to let those people down. I knew that there were people back at my command that had bets going on regarding whether I would make it through training or not. And the people that were my ride or dies, they were like, no, that's my bro. He's going to make it through training. And there was just no way in hell I was going to let those people down. And so, yeah, the second time around, it just felt completely different in my heart and in my mind.
Yeah, that's some good perspective. True growth, and that's one thing. I love progress. You can't speed it up, right? It's going to move at the pace it's going to move. So I hear a little bit of that in your story. So I guess for the SQT and for buds in general, what's like a really memorable experience, or maybe like it can be like the suckiest moment, or I don't know, maybe one that just sticks out to you in your mind. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, that's a great question. Man, there were so many
Yeah.
of those instances. I mean, you know what it's like going through training. It's
Yep.
when things get extremely hard, like there's always someone that's got a joke to crack that just makes everyone feel like, oh, no, you know what? Yeah, I'm in the right place and I am not suffering alone. So, and there are so many of those stories that are just completely inappropriate for any podcast that we would do. So I want to be really careful here. I will tell you an experience that I had toward the end of Hell Week, right? So Hell Week is, when I was going through, it was the fifth week of the first phase of training. So it's the fifth week of the 26-week BUDS pipeline before you even get to advanced training. And this was a situation that touched my heart in a way that I hadn't expected, especially, coming from one of my instructors, one of the cadre, while I'm going through Hell Week. When you're going through Hell Week, they're literally trying to get you out of there. They're trying to weed out the weak. And I can hardly remember, because I think it was Wednesday afternoon. So that by that time you're like clinically insane. You've been up for a few days. Your body is in shock. Like you're literally crazy. And I can remember being on the beach and, by that time, like it's Wednesday afternoon, the cadre, they're looking at the small group of dudes that are left and they know like, hey, like this is it. This is the group that's going to go all the way through. And so they do sort of taper back the intensity a little bit starting Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, because now they're really paying attention to safety. They don't want anyone to get hurt because they know you're delirious. You're not thinking straight. And so we were on the beach Wednesday morning doing what they would consider to be a fun evolution, right? And they had all of the guys lined up in two ranks, and the ranks were facing one another, and they put on a bunch of music coming from one of the vehicles, and they're just passing time at this point. So they've got dudes, walking through the middle of the line, and you're supposed to like do a little dance and, say why you're happy to be there and on and on and on. And I remember when it was my turn to go through, I was just like, yeah, man, screw it, I'm going to do it. And I just had a good time, and I was showing my ass and just like dancing and screaming going through. And I remember getting to the end of the line, and one of the cadre, who was a warrant officer, super senior dude in the SEAL teams, walked over to me, and he looked me in my eyes and he said, dude, you are going to make a great SEAL team guy. Like I've never seen a student smile as much as you have smiled throughout this entire week. I've watched you carry your class through this week, and there's something special about you. So you keep going. Like no matter how hard it gets, just keep going. And that shot of reinforcement in my heart coming from one of my instructors and someone that senior that I really looked up to, man, that was the power of word. That was the power of leadership and mentorship and motivation. In a 30-second interaction with someone that changed the trajectory of my entire life. And those are the kind of experiences that we had throughout our time in the military, because I mean, we work alongside giants, and that was a situation that I'll never, ever forget. It taught me just how powerful a person can be in the life of someone else. Like your words matter. You know what I mean? And I'll never forget that.
Yeah, absolutely. At least for me, it's easy to underestimate the power of what leadership can do. And when you hear stories like this, it's just such a good reminder, like power of word plus the position that he held in your mind, the respect you had for him in that moment, in that timing. Like you said, I mean, how many years later you're telling this story on a podcast because of the way that it positively impacted you.
Yeah.
So cool. I love it. Cool. So, man, so you make it through the second time. You get to the teams. You spent 20 plus years in the teams or 20 plus years, I guess, total. How much total was it?
Yeah. So I spent 20 years to the day in the Navy, and about 14 and a half, 15 of those years were in the Naval Special Warfare community.
Okay, awesome. So a lot of time, safe to say, a lot of time. You did some really good things. You know, I know you to be big on leadership. So I'd love to hear, you know, during the times of the rapid deployments, you know, throughout the combat, the training, and that whole time frame, what are some of the other big takeaways from like leadership that you've been able to really cling to, and now you find yourself going back to within your companies? You know, we talked about this a little bit where you were sharing like, we learn certain frameworks, we learn certain things in the military, but it's applicable to real life. Like, you know, being an entrepreneur has similarities. Being in business has similarities. And I'd love to hear some of those that come to mind for you.
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things about leadership that I learned from my time in the SEAL teams is that, you know, leaders lead as a result of a desire, this innate desire to see other people be successful. Like I have this innate desire to grow other people and watch them blossom and flourish and thrive through life. And that was an example that I learned from, I'd say my first two platoon chiefs at least. They were just really, really good dudes that were not just talented operators, but they were really fair leaders. They knew when to drop the hammer. They knew when to call you, you know, back into a room in private and have a conversation with you that would, you know, scare the daylights out of you. But they also knew how to praise in public and recognize when someone was improving. And they weren't shy about letting the group know that, like, hey, I see this person and they're doing well. They weren't the average egotistical, ego-driven, you know, alpha male that people would assume is in the special operations community. I think that another important lesson that I learned was the importance of communication. You know, how important it is for leaders to be masterful at communication, right? And that doesn't mean that, you know, someone that's really, really quiet and rarely ever talks, you know, can't be a good leader. It's just that there's a right way and a wrong way to say everything. There's a right time and a wrong time to say everything. And I think that leaders have to have this ability to read the room, and not just read the room, but read the people in the room and read the person that's sitting across from you, understanding that most communication is nonverbal. Really good leaders know when to press. They know when to pull back a little bit. You know what I mean? Really good leaders know when not to say anything at all. And I think that when I was very young, I went from being like this super quiet person, you know, growing up. Like a lot of my friends would tell me, like, dude, you're just really, really quiet, to getting in the Navy and experiencing some life and then running my mouth all the time. Like, oh my God, this is cool. To getting in the SEAL teams and understanding that, okay, just because you have something to say doesn't mean that you should say it. You should put a lot of thought into it first. And I learned that as a result of the giants that were surrounding me, these world-class leaders that were surrounding me. You know, and these men also taught me how leaders are supposed to carry themselves. Leaders eat last, leaders lead by example, leaders make uncomfortable and unpopular decisions without flinching when they know that it's for the greater good of the tribe. Leaders sacrifice themselves all the time for the greater good of the tribe. They don't commit suicide in their acts because they know that they can't continue to lead the tribe. If they do that, they just completely fall on that sword. But they understand that as a leader, sometimes I'm going to have to get cut and bleed for this person because that's my job as a leader, is to shield them from that blade. I think that one of the biggest, if not the biggest lesson that I learned from my leadership in the Naval Special Warfare community is humility. That is the biggest lesson that I learned. I wasn't the most talented SEAL out there, but I was talented. I like to think that I was pretty good at my job. And when I tell you that I didn't, like I knew guys in the SEAL teams that had more natural talent in their pinky finger than I had in my entire being when it came to being an operator. Man, I can't even begin to tell you how good some of these men were. And I would watch these dudes, and they were always the most quiet dudes. They were always the most observative guys. They were always the guys that were very strategic in injecting themselves into a situation and then talking and teaching a lesson. And it always blew my mind, especially in, this alpha community, that the guys that were the most talented were also the guys that were the most humble. They were also the guys that would come and sit next to the new guys and go, "Hey, what are you doing, man? Let me help you with that." You know what I mean? And so that lesson went a very, very long way, especially considering where I am in life now. I found some success. I'll be 47 years old in a couple of days. And glory be to God, like I have a really, really, really good life. And I shudder to think what I would be like, or what kind of jerk I would be had I not learned those lessons. Because, over the last 9 years I've spent in the corporate space rubbing elbows with business leaders, I got to tell you, I have met some extremely arrogant yet untalented and unimpressive people, like all over the place. And I see the contrast now. And I got to learn the lesson from my boys in the SEAL teams, what it means to be a humble professional. And I got to learn from some of those experiences in the corporate space, what it means to be the exact opposite, and how people actually view you when you are behaving in a manner that's the exact opposite of what I was learning in the SEAL teams. And so it made me really, really grateful that I had learned that lesson of humility, so that I always understand where I stand. No matter what I accomplish, no matter how successful I become, I always know where I stand in the grand scheme of things. And I'm really grateful for that, because God, the world, life has a way of humbling you for you when you refuse to humble yourself. And I'm at a point in my life now where I don't ever want to put myself in a position again where God feels the need to humble me. And so I'm really glad that I learned that lesson.
Yeah, man, good. So along those lines, I know I've heard you say, victory comes through surrender and flow. Can you explain that a little bit more? Because it sounds like, to me, it sounds like that's what you're sort of describing here.
Yeah, no one has ever asked me that question in that manner. No one has ever asked me to talk about that. And I'm so glad you did. Thank you. Because that is where I am in life now. As a result of all of this stuff I've gone through, all of these things I've learned that victory is absolutely on the other side of surrender and flow. And what I mean by that is, long story short, we didn't get here on our own, right? I don't know what your beliefs are, but my belief is that there is a God in heaven, who sent his only son to pay for our sins so that we could have eternal life and protection from Satan and the sin of this world while we are here. And I understand that like not everyone feels that way, but I just like to say y'all are going to have to trust me on this one because I have lived through experiences that there's just no way in hell I should have lived through. I've made it out of situations where the only person that could have gotten my ass out of that situation is God. And so I have learned that everything does in fact happen for a reason. There is someone in charge of all of this. Whether we understand or not, it doesn't matter if we understand. What's important is our belief and our faith and our constant effort to walk the path that God lays out in front of us and to walk in his image and to follow his commandments. And that's what I mean by surrender. Like, I'm never going to be a perfect human being. I sin just as much as everyone else. I make mistakes just like everyone else. I'm just as fallen as everyone else. But I have learned to completely surrender my life over to God's will for me and God's time for me, whether I like it or not. I've gotten to a place in my life where I understand that, like, hey, man, my likes and dislikes have very little to do with anything. Right? It's not about me, right? It's about the people that are around me. It's about everyone except me. And in really surrendering my life to being a servant leader and to being this person that at the end of every day, I can look at myself in the mirror and say, like, hey, I at least think God is pleased with me today. I think I did a decent job of walking in his image today. And what that means for me, that surrender is, dude, it's life changing. Because what it means for me is that I don't ever have to be afraid. I'm never afraid. I don't have to worry. I don't have to have anxiety. I simply have to surrender, do my work, and flow through whatever comes on the other side of that. And so I live in a manner that forces me to constantly recognize 24 hours a day that it's not about me, but it's about my service in the eyes of our Creator. And that allows me to flow in a manner that I don't force things anymore, Devin. I don't. Like, sure, I have dreams just like everyone else. I set goals and I work toward those goals. But I've learned that it's not like how things are on the battlefield where it's like, no, we are going to impose our will. Like, we don't care about what obstacle you put up in front of us. We're going to go over, around, or through it, right? It's life as a whole shouldn't be lived that way. Like, sure, there is a time for everything under the sun, right? Just like the word says, there's a time for love, there's a time for peace, there's a time for war. But life as a whole, God never meant for us to be anxious about our lives. You know, Jesus said that you will not add a single hour onto your life by being anxious about it. And so now, when I'm working toward one of those goals, when I start getting that resistance, I have this more of a zoomed out understanding of, okay, no, I'm going to hit some resistance because this is really big what I'm trying to do. But at a certain point, you know, I have to have the wherewithal to understand when resistance becomes unhealthy, when that resistance feels more sinister than anything else. And when that higher voice is talking to me saying that, like, hey, like, sure, you're going to keep trying to go that way, you know, like you would do in the kill house, doing close quarters combat. I'm going to let you, right? Because you have free will. I've given you free will, right? But if you come over this way, I'm telling you, there is another way, and it's bigger, better, faster, stronger than anything you could have imagined. And so I've learned to recognize when I hit that point, immediately go, okay, God, you don't want me to go that way? Fine, I'm going this way. No, I don't need to know what's over there. I don't need to understand. You said to get up and go that way. And so that's the way I'm going to get up and go. And I've learned that just through years and years and years of experience that when God tells you to get up and move, man, you better get up and move. You had better get up right now and move. One experience that I will never, ever forget as long as I live was a gunfight that I was leading my boys through in the summer of 2014 in Tangi Valley of Afghanistan. And we had been in a four-sided gunfight all day. We were actually covering down for an ODA unit that was pushing northwest through the Tangi Valley, through the Jogi village. And they were in a nasty gunfight. We were in a nasty gunfight, providing overwatch from them. It was just like a chaotic day. But the boys were having a good time. And I had my boys set up at the top of this terrain feature that we had taken under the cover of darkness in order to provide overwatch for our Army brothers. And there are 4 compounds on top of this piece of terrain. And I had named them Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. And I had guys in each. I was in Bravo's position. And, something told me, go down to Alpha's position, check on the boys, make sure they're okay. So I ran about 100 yards, through gunfire and explosions, getting to Alpha's position so that I could check on the boys. When I got there, everything was okay. They were slugging it out with the Taliban. They were having the time of their lives and all was good. And so something was telling me, hey, hang out here for a few minutes. Just make sure everybody's okay. So I was making the rounds. Hey, you good? How's ammo? Everybody good on water? Anybody hurt? Everything's okay. The boys were having a good time. And about 5 minutes later, something or someone spoke to me and was like, get the boys out of here right now. And fortunately, I didn't hesitate. I got on the radio. I let the ground force commander know, like, hey, sir, I'm breaking down Alpha's position. I'm going to collapse him back to Bravo and Charlie's position. And gratefully, my ground force commander didn't question me at all. He's just like, Roger that, Chief. Let me know when the boys are safe and at those other locations. And so we broke out of Alpha's position. I was about the middle of the pack, and I got around the corner of the Bravo compound, and I turned and looked around the corner just in time to see my last guy coming out of that compound and him tapping his buddy saying, hey, last man, no more friendlies behind us. And those guys were hauling ass. They got about 10 seconds away from that compound and mortars just started falling in the center of that compound, destroyed the whole thing. Right. So if I had hesitated for even just 15 seconds when God was telling me, hey, get up and move right now, like I might not be sitting here. Some of my best friends in the whole world might be dead. Right. And so I've learned in life that, hey, man, you have to surrender your life and understand that your life is not your own. Everything that you have in your life, it's not really yours. It's God providing for you. All of this belongs to him, and he gives it to you when you need it. And you had better never, ever forget that, because the good Lord giveth and the good Lord taketh away, right? And you have to flow, which means that when God tells you to switch directions, you switch directions. When he tells you to get up and move, you get up and move, and you don't ask questions. You don't need to understand. You just need to flow so that you're walking that path that our Creator wants you to walk, instead of you trying to walk the path that you want. And so I surrender my life to God's will for me, and I try to flow in the directions that he tells me to go. And since I've started living my life that way for years now, it's almost been like magic, man. And the more I experience this, I find the less anxiety that I have, because I'm like, dude, you know how much proof that I have that everything is going to be okay. You know how much proof I have that God is always going to provide for me, no matter how dark the situation gets. And so that's how I try to live my life. And that's how I try to guide the people that I coach and mentor to live their lives as well.
Man, that's powerful, and a powerful testament as well. Man, one of my favorite things about doing this podcast is I get to talk with a lot of top entrepreneurs like you, and we all encounter very similar things, and we offer different perspectives. You said a lot of really good things there. One thing that stuck out to me was you said we can't impose our will on it. And man, I tell you what, just like you said, we'll go under it, over it, around it, or it's like, hey, dude, give me that porthole charge. Like we're going through, like we'll figure it out. The number of times I encounter that during a week, man, especially as a leader, and I'm just like, because I know I can't, but I'm like, there's something in me, like we're going to make it happen. We want to win, but it's like, no, that's not the way. And it comes back to, I keep coming back to this, like, hey, I get very frustrated with not being able to control things that I think I should be able to control. And it's all an illusion. And it's like, there are certain things that you can control. You focus on those and you got to surrender. You got to surrender the rest. So I get in this pattern of, all right, let me surrender and let me discern so I know where to go, and let me just focus on listening and going. And every time I do that, I get on this like high and then, get into the week and the challenges start coming. And so that's where I'm at right now. And everything you said is just so relatable.
Yeah. And my advice to you, Devin, would be to just always remember that God's will for you is always good, always, right? And we may not understand why difficulties hit us in the moment, but there's always growth on the other side of difficulty. You're always going to end up bigger, better, faster, stronger. You have more perspective now on the other side of that difficulty than you had before you went into it. And so as you're in that difficulty, if you can change your mindset in the moment to go, oh, well, okay, yeah, this is normal. Like, no, I'm not saying it doesn't suck, because it absolutely sucks. I'm mindful of it, but I know that it's going to be okay. I know that I'm going to be better on the other side of this. I know I'm going to survive whatever this difficulty is, just like I've survived every other difficulty in my life. You have the ability in that moment to elevate your frequency and your vibration so that negative energy cannot have its way with you. Instead, God's will is going to have his way with you. And again, it is always good. Doesn't mean that you don't have to go through those hard situations. You're going to go through them, but you can not just go through them, you can thrive through them. And you can have a smile on your face and in your heart, knowing that, like, yeah, sure, man, it's fine. It's going to be okay. I'm just going to flow. I'm going to go this way. I don't need to understand when or how or where or why it's going to be okay. I just know that it's going to be okay, right? So if you can change your mindset in that moment, if you can give thanks to God and show gratitude in the middle of a test, in the middle of a trial, in the middle of pain, like, dude, you're changing your entire aura. And it's like magic how you see things unfold and begin to change around you as a result of the energy that you are exuding out into the universe.
Man, that makes perfect sense to me. Thank you. I appreciate that. Man, oh man, good stuff. So Ty, where did Hiro come in? Because I know you've had a lot of pivotal moments throughout your life, but and not so much just Hiro, but CommSafe AI, like business in general. What was sort of the genesis of that? And if you talk a little bit about what you're doing with both of those companies.
Yeah. So at the end of, the Navy was just so good to me. And at the end of my naval career, I had mentors that just loved and cared about me. And I love these people to this day because I can never repay them for how good they've been to me and how they've helped set me up for where I am in life now. Chiefs, master chiefs, officers that loved and cared about me and would pull me aside and be like, hey, man, think about this or think about that. And around the 15-year mark, a few of my senior enlisted advisors that were exactly those people were like, hey, man, like, you're at 15 years. Are you coming or are you going? If you're going to retire in 5 years, you need to start preparing right now. Are you going to college? Are you talking to people that are civilians that could teach you something about being a civilian? Are you talking to people that can give you an idea of what you might want to do after you retire from the Navy? And so fortunately, I was listening to those people. And so I ended up enrolling in Ashford University for my undergraduate studies. It later became the University of Arizona Global Campus. But around the 15-year mark, I started working on my undergrad. And by the time I was retiring, I was finishing my undergraduate studies and I had gotten accepted into graduate school at University of Southern California, Marshall Business School, because I had learned from a bunch of my friends that, hey, man, like, we think you'd be really good at business. Because I was considering business school or law school. Because when I was going through my undergraduate studies, I kind of discovered that, like, hey, man, like, you're actually pretty talented at academics. You've got some maturity now. You understand how to focus. You're actually really good at this stuff. So why not keep going? And so, like, everybody that knows me knows I'm a Brazilian jiu-jitsu nerd. And in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, man, you meet all kinds of people. And I had a lot of friends in the jiu-jitsu community that were MBAs. I had a lot of friends in that community that were lawyers. And so I went and talked to all of those men and women about, like, hey, I'm thinking about going to law school. I'm thinking about going to business school. Bro, 100% of them that were lawyers were like, you're going to hate it. Don't go to law school. We know you don't do it. Go to business school. I was like, check, Roger that, going to business school. And so I got into the Master Business for Veterans program at USC. And I was planning to go over to the FBI. I was already at the end of the pipeline. I had a spot lined up in the academy. And probably about 2 or 3 months before I was finishing graduate school and I was supposed to go to training, I was in class on campus up at USC when the Inland Regional Center in San Bernardino, California was shot up by that radicalized Islamic couple at that holiday party, killed a bunch of people, injured a bunch more. It ended in this dramatic shootout with SWAT downtown San Bernardino. And after that happened, I had people reaching out to me from the medical community, people that I knew by way of my network, and saying, hey, man, we're scared. We don't have any training. We don't know what to do if someone comes into this hospital or this clinic and starts trying to hurt the patients. Can you come and talk to us about what's happening out there right now? And so after doing that a few times, it was like I could hear the market telling me, like, hey, you have a unique skill set that the rest of us don't. Excuse me. And we find value in it. And so it was like I could hear my entrepreneurship professor at the time in the back of my head saying, hey, the market is talking to you about what it needs from you. And so I ended up turning down that position with the FBI and building my first company, Vigilance Risk Solutions, a tech-enabled security consultancy. And about 4.5, 5 years into Vigilance, we had found a tremendous amount of success. We were very proud of what we built. We had reached 7 figures in revenue. As a result of me proving that model and product market fit, I went out and raised $2 million of investor capital to scale that model. And we were tech enabling. We were building web-based training courses at that time. We were building a proprietary case management platform so that organizations could actually track the breadcrumbs of the risky situations that would take place within the organization. Like, we were doing really, really well. And January of 2020 rolled around and I started seeing the writing on the wall with the COVID-19 pandemic that was beginning. And I went, oh shit, that's going to crash this business model, because 85% of this revenue is still coming from consulting services, right? So it's being in person with the customer. And so ultimately, we had a brainstorming session to figure out, hey, how are we going to get out of this alive? And we came up with the idea for CommSafe AI as a way that we could continue down the path of keeping people and organizations safe, but we can do it bigger, better, faster, stronger using artificial intelligence. We can find the risk at its conception using AI instead of waiting for that person they've already been assaulted and now the company's being sued and they're losing time, money, resources, and talent. And so as we came up with the idea for CommSafe AI technology, I was already selling to like 30, 40, 50, pretty large companies by way of vigilance. So I just went back to all of them and said, hey, can I talk to your chief human resources officer and your general counsel? I want to talk to them about this idea that we have. And so I did what I was taught to do in graduate school. We call it a customer discovery survey and a product discovery survey. And I went to all of those people and basically said, hey, this is the idea. This is how we think it will work. This is the value we think you will get out of it. You tell us what you think. And I did that between January of 2020 and June of 2020. I think I did that like 60 or 70 times. And I captured all of that data in spreadsheets. And as you can imagine, once we zoomed out from the spreadsheets, we could see all of the commonalities from all of the different conversations. And we pulled all of those commonalities out and went, okay, here are the features that need to go into the CommSafe AI platform. And with that, CommSafe AI was born. I took all of that data back to my board, back to the investors, to some new investors in the venture community. We were able to raise our first venture capital backed financing round to actually become CommSafe AI and build the beta platform. But all of that was born out of me getting into graduate school at the University of Southern California, because they seem to feed every student in that school entrepreneurial Kool-Aid, and they want you to go out and build big and badass businesses. And so I decided that's what I was going to do.
Oh man, I love it. And so you've been working on that for, well, it sounds like you rebranded.
So about 5.5 years now. Like I ran Vigilance for about 4.5 years. And then it became CommSafe about, 5 years ago at the beginning of 2020. And so the journey with CommSafe, Devin, has been the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Like seriously, I'd rather be getting shot at. It has been that difficult. It's been that challenging, from an emotional and psychological standpoint. It's been that stressful. Like I've never been so stressed out in my entire life, because when we commit to things, we take things seriously and we're going to show up, right? I'm going to get this done. I don't care how hard it is. I don't care how long it takes. And so carrying that level of intensity and that level of purpose for so long regarding something that's so uniquely difficult, going into it knowing that there's a 90% chance or more that I'm going to fail at this, it becomes very exhausting, to say the least. And so, one of the lessons that I've learned as a technology entrepreneur is that, man, half of the battle is the resilience of the founder, the attitude of the founder to keep going no matter what, no matter how difficult it becomes. And now that is a lesson that started way back in Buds for me, right? And then gasoline was poured on that fire when I got downrange into combat. No matter what, you keep going. You never leave a person behind on the battlefield, and you always have focus on the mission, and you keep going. And so that attitude has gotten me to where I am now in business with CommSafe, because again, this has been, if not the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. Finding product market fit for a technology that was actually before its time. Because think about the timeline. We launched in 2020. That was about 2 years ahead of the AI wave starting. That was about 2 years before, OpenAI, came out of stealth and said, here you go, world, ChatGPT, you're welcome. Here comes the start of the AI wave, right? So we were back in the background building what we were doing at the same time that they were still kind of in stealth and hadn't really opened up the world to mainstream AI yet. And so trying to learn from the market, trying to build at the same time, trying to sell at the same time, the many hats that a CEO, a founder has to wear in this game. It's extremely difficult. It's exhausting. And I can only be immensely grateful for where we are now because, dude, we've faced so many extinction events where it should have caused us to go out of business. We should be completely out of money. The company should be dead. Over the last 5.5 years, I've watched so many brand new AI companies spring up and go away because as a result of how difficult this really, really is. And only by the grace of God, we've been able to hang in there. Only by the grace of God, we've been able to, oh my God, we just discovered this thing. And this is the next step to get us from this plateau to this plateau. Now, let me go talk to our investors and make sure we can get more money in the bank and keep going. And I looked up and I found myself as this kid that was born and raised in the ghetto of East St. Louis to like, wait a minute, what do you mean this kid is now raising venture capital to go into an artificial intelligence company, right? So I can only give glory to God that I've been able to navigate that journey and arrive at where I am now. And I'm really, 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 really grateful and happy to say, and I can say this now, the cat's out of the bag. As of a couple of weeks ago, again, glory be to God. I think I'm nearing the end of my journey with CommSafe. CommSafe is in the middle of an M&A transaction right now. And so, the deal isn't closed yet, right? And every deal can fall apart 3 different ways before it gets closed. But the company is in the process of being acquired. And, I am going to surrender and flow and relax in faith that God's will for me is good. And if it's his will that this deal is completed and CommSafe is acquired, that is exactly what's going to happen over the next 90 days, whether people like it or not. And so I'm just going to relax in my faith that, God, I prayed and asked for a miracle and you gave me one. And so I'm just going to let it happen. I'm just going to flow and let it happen. And that leads me into Hiro Consulting, Devin. It had always been my plan to build CommSafe to the point where it could be acquired, have it be acquired, and then I was going to move on into coaching and showing other people how to do what I've been able to accomplish. Because again, how much of a tragedy would it be if I have this otherworldly testimony of where I started compared to where I am now and how I got here, and I didn't go share that experience with other people that are trying to do exactly what I'm doing? Like, how selfish of a person would I be if I didn't do that? And so I just decided to launch Hiro a little early. I launched Hiro Consulting a few months ago before the offer even came across, because that's what God put on my heart to do. And I surrender and I'm going to flow in the direction that he tells me to flow. And I started writing the autobiography around that time as a result of that discernment I was getting from God as well. As a part of Hiro Consulting, as a part of that strategy, basically. Because I felt like God was telling me that, hey, you're entering the teaching season of your life. Now it's time for you to go out and be a testimony of my grace to you. Now it's time for you to go out and take the affluence I'm blessing you with and influence other people on my behalf so that they can grow and they can come toward me too. And so I ended up naming Hiro Consulting. And Hiro Consulting is a leadership coaching, mindset and lifestyle coaching and executive coaching company. And I do keynote speaking by way of Hiro Consulting too, speaking on leadership, Navy SEAL leadership principles, resilience, motivation, mindset, and the like. And I named it Hiro Consulting for a reason. Someone asked me this yesterday. Like, think about how many people have looked you in your face and told you you're a hero. Honestly, can you think of at least 4 or 5 times people have done that? Now, let me ask you this. How have you reacted every time those people have told you that? Like, Devin, you're a hero, man. And what's your reaction most of the time when they say that?
A lot of it's we're doing our job. We're
right? Right? You're like, no, man, I'm just doing my job. No, I'm not. I'm not a hero. I'm just doing my job. And when I went to build Hiro Consulting, one of the downloads I feel like I got from God is, hey, man, why do you keep shrinking yourself? I keep sending you all these people to tell you about the light that is inside of you. I keep sending you all these signals. People are telling you what they see and what they sense when they look at you and when they're around you. They're literally telling you who I created you to be. Who are you to throw those blessings away? Who are you to turn down those blessings? Who in the hell are you to shrink in my presence when I'm telling you who you are, right? And so it kind of hit me that, wow, I get it now. And with me learning the lesson of humility, I wanted to make it about everyone. I still wanted to make it about everyone. And for me, it's not that I am a hero. It's that we are heroes. And when I say that we are heroes, I don't just mean that veterans, or service members are heroes. No, I think what I mean is that no, we are all heroes. Because here's the deal, Mr. Executive in this 1,000 employee company. No one is coming to save you. Okay. Whatever you're dealing with right now, whatever problems you are facing, whatever, turmoil your heart is going through right now, no one is coming to save you. You are the hero you have been holding out for. You are the leader you have been waiting to show up and save you. So what are you waiting for? Okay, no problem. I built a framework for you to follow. Get up and follow me. Because eventually you're going to look to your left or your right and I'm not going to be there anymore. You're just going to be running as a result of my teaching and as a result of my motivation. But make no mistake, you are the hero that you have been holding out for. So what are you waiting for? And that's what caused me to name the company Hiro Consulting. And that's a part of what I teach with my clients. And I work with executives at large companies. I'm working with CEOs of middle market companies that are doing over $100 million in revenue. I work with professional athletes. I work with senior military officials that are transitioning out of the military into the private sector. And it's all about helping that person to realize who they really are and that they are absolutely limitless. But again, there's a right and a wrong way to do everything. So I think that there is a hero inside every single person on this planet, because every single person on this planet was created with God's divinity in every inch of them. It's just waiting for them to wake up and take hold of it and run with it.
So good. So good. I love it, man. Such an inspiring journey, Ty, and amazing to hear all those things to come with the acquisition and where you're going with Hiro and going to be devoting a lot of your time here in the future. Man, for our listeners here, as we start to wrap up, where can they connect with you? Where can they learn more about your companies, about what you got going on in social media and all those good things?
Yeah, so I'm pretty public on social media. You can look me up on Instagram, connect with me, follow me at Coach Ty Smith on Instagram. You can also look me up and follow me on LinkedIn. That's linkedin.com/Ty Smith 31. And you can also check out the Hiro Consulting website at www.wearehiro.com. And that's hero with an IHIRO. And if anyone is curious about the framework that I published recently that's now helping executives at large companies be better leaders at those companies, they can also check out the landing page at www.wearehiro.com/the framework.
Love it. We'll get that linked into the show notes here, make it easily clickable for our listeners. Man, Ty, thank you again for sharing your wisdom with us. It's been a pleasure, man.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate the time.
Yes, sir. For our listeners, thanks for joining us. Until next time, we'll see you.